access the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey, Green Lantern fans, welcome to a very special episode of the podcast of OA. I'm your co-host, Myron Rumsey, and I am joined by my friend on the other end, Mr. Phil Bova. Mr. Phil, this is going to be a fun one.
It is. A year in the making.
Yeah, you're right. So we're getting back with Jeremy Adams, the current writer of Green Lantern. A year ago or so, when we interviewed him prior to the release of the first issue, we kind of had it joked around about, in a year, let's come back and touch base. So I recently reached back out to Jeremy and said, hey, it's been a year. And he was like, let's do it. And so he jumped on. We had a great conversation. For those that are watching or listening, this was recorded prior to the release of issue number 12, which just came out this week. We're recording this intro and outro on the 12th of June. And we recorded the interview last week before this issue came out. So we didn't talk about this specific issue, but it's interesting to go and watch our conversation, Phil, because there's some comments we make about Hal and Carol, which kind of fit with issue 12, which I thought was great. We were all syncopado there for a little bit there. So that was great.
The only thing we didn't get out of him was Kilowog. He danced around that, but
yeah, he danced around Kilowog a little bit. And when we do these interviews, it'd be great to get some scoops and stuff, but I've never really am pressuring them to give us a scoop. But I do like to joke around and have a good time with it and see if they slip up and say something. That's great, that's fun. But I don't want to get anybody in trouble either. And Jeremy's too nice of a guy to get in trouble by trying to trick him. But he's done a lot of interviews, you can tell, and he's very wary about what he says. So
he is. He's very conscious.
Yeah. And what a great guy. We've done a lot of creator interviews, and I say this a lot because everybody we've interviewed has been so great. But Jeremy he's a great guy.
It was fun to talk to. It was just like talking to another fan.
Yeah.
But like we talked about the idea of like writing your own favorite character, and of course he's on Flash Gordon, which, I grew up with that character, my brother, and we watched that countless times on cable when it came out. And
I had to, after the interview, I went and pulled my 4K out and watched it again because it just put me in the mood for it, even though he's not writing the movie version of Flash Gordon necessarily. He's writing more of the classic version, or you could almost say it's the did you watch the cartoon that was out right around the time the movie came out? So it's more akin to the cartoon than it is the movie, though there's little nuggets here and there that are intentional winks and nods to the Flash Gordon movie. But what a great time to interview him. And we had, like I said, we had a great conversation. So I hope people enjoy that. Before we jump right into it, though, just a little bit of Green Lantern news. Since the last time we recorded, there's been more rumors about the Lanterns TV show and the casting of Hal and John. And supposedly, and this hasn't really been confirmed, but the rumor source seems to be pretty reliable. They're looking for a John who's in his 20s to early 30s and a Hal that's in his 40s to potentially early 50s. I'm not sure what to think about that one, to be honest. I really would prefer a younger Hal, and I know James Gunn said a comment about the fact that according to canon, Hal is a little older than John. John was 12 when Hal got the ring, right? But I think if you try to leave Hal too old, certain things don't line up. Like certainly the dreadful Carol Ferris, Cal Rayner romance looks really ugly if you think that she's about the same age as Hal. The age difference is way far apart. And I don't think with all the changes we've had, that those things are necessarily canon anymore. I mean, how many crises and reboots have we had since then?
Right.
So I don't think Hal's necessarily that old. And I know there will be those people that say, well, in order to be a test pilot, you've got to have so much experience, yada, yada, yada. Listen, we're talking about comic books. We're talking about people that can fly and do things with power rings. I don't think we need to worry about being factual with the age of a test pilot of all things.
Right.
So
And I don't think there's necessarily an age limit to it, but
yeah,
um,
so I made a comment, and of course you get people saying, well, you people complain about everything. I don't think I was complaining. I think the only comment I made was I kind of hope that's not true, and here's why.
well, I
Well,
mean, it's basically your if you're forward thinking, you don't want to age your own favorite character out of the grouping. You know what I mean? So, a few years down the line, you start thinking about your casting. It's not as easy to sit here and shuffle out a movie every year thinking your character's
right,
got some kind of timeless invention in his or her looks, right? So,
exactly.
I mean, at best, you're good for three movies. If I mean, Marvel started early, so they got to intermingle a lot and they got to use characters and cross them over and everything like that. But I mean, like the Superman, I mean, the dude had to know he's going to sign up for multiple castings and multiple
Yeah, you're
appearances and other movies, and
you
that's a lifelong engagement.
yeah, you're in it for the long haul. So,
Yeah,
I really would like to see Hal in his prime, not past his prime, and want him to stick around because regardless of who your favorite is, he is the face of the franchise. Everything reverts back to Hal all the time. And you're not going to get to Kyle and Jessica and Simon when we're in phase one. You've got to leave yourself room to have a roadmap.
yeah.
And the legacy of the DC universe is primed for that kind of transition. So I don't want to see an older Hal, but that's my opinion. I'm sure there are those that are fine with it, and that's fine. To each his own. Like I said, I just kind of hope that it's not the case.
Same here.
I think in terms of Green Lantern on the page, I think Guy Gardner showed up in The World's Finest or the Batman Brave and the Bold book. I can't remember which because I'm not reading it, but he's been kind of reoccurring there a little bit. Other than that, there hasn't been much since the last time we recorded. In terms of GL June, for those that have been following along, Mosaic Comics has part 3 out, which we did part 2 in the last episode. Part 3 is out on YouTube. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for those that want to take a look at it.
That was
Uh,
fun. I always like doing those with those guys. It's always a good crossover show, and it doesn't matter the material, like it or not. I mean, everybody has their own opinions, but at the same time, it's still fun to talk about just new stuff, different
yeah,
stuff.
even if it wasn't the greatest stuff, I was watching Dan's video today, and he really didn't have much to say about the Dark Stars issue either. His comments about that issue were similar to the comments you and I had about Green Lantern 65, in that it seemed rather immature,
Mm.
but it was of a time. It was of an era when certain things were kind of commonplace. I think when you go back and look at Silver Age stories, a lot of them are really wacky. I mean, if you look on Reddit, boy, there's a lot of people who like to post panels from Hal from a long, long, long time ago when he says things that aren't really politically correct.
Yeah, I
But
don't ever understand that agenda. It's like, what's the point of that?
right,
Who gives a
right.
shit? I'm sorry. Who cares what he said? I mean, everybody knows times change. I don't understand why people can't get that through their skull when it comes to,
Yeah.
I mean, media presentation. I mean, sure, there's an accountability, but at the same time, are you just going to drag up everything in the past just to throw a character shade now?
I think it's all about they're trying to throw a character shade and illustrate why he's not such a great character. And the common things they bring up are Aricia and that whole thing. And they like to bring up the panel with calling Tom Camelcoo pie face.
Well, to be
Um,
fair, let's be fair. John Stewart's killed two people with no cause just because he got mad. So if you
yeah.
guys really want to get on the bandwagon of casting stones, I mean, look at that. I mean, Hal's never killed anybody before.
I mean, if you go back and look at all the characters from back in the early Silver Age, a lot of them, I don't think there's probably a character you could name that you couldn't go out and find something. Any character who had a kind of a book.
Yeah.
That was the era. You can't hold a character accountable for something that a writer wrote that isn't fashionable anymore and isn't right to say anymore. And you see when John's rebooted things and he does a retelling, when you look at GL Oregon, when you look at Green Lantern Origins, there's a whole scene where somebody calls Tom Pie Face, and Hal corrects him. So it's pivoted with the times. Origins have been told and retold a number of times, and
Yes.
they change with the times. So you certainly can't hold somebody accountable for something that was said or done 40 years ago,
I,
especially a fictional character, for crying out
I,
loud.
I think that's reserved to a certain group of individuals that resided out of Germany during World War II. I think that's the
Right?
only, yeah, I think that's the only one that should be under that kind of spotlight. Anyway,
Exactly.
but beyond that, I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes out. I mean, I'm not gonna put anything before it because I have faith that James Gunn is gonna do right. I mean,
Right. Right.
you can't have anything but, it's like everybody on the Reddit and everybody on social media arguing about this and this and this and this.
Right.
God,
Like,
it's the Game of Thrones stuff, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's the same journey. You go down a cesspool of idiocy and you're like, hold on, I'm sorry, where are you at? I'm sorry. And you're not writing this story, you're not producing it. I don't think you're directing it right now. But why do you think that's better than what they're doing with their lives right now? I
And
mean,
until the casting is actually announced with who's who, you can't pass judgment because again, it's a rumor. It's a rumor from a fairly reliable source, but eh, until we see the actual casting, until you actually see the show, you can't really have anything critical to say. And like I said, I don't think I was being critical. I was just expressing an opinion that I hope that's not true. But
well, it's like people jumping on corn sweat for Superman. It's like I don't know what kind of negativity he's going to have leading up, but all intents and purposes, it looks like it's pretty positive. And
yeah,
it's like, dude, I mean, the guy had to know signing a contract what kind of burden he was carrying on his shoulders. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't
right.
want the job personally. I wish him
Whoever
luck in his endeavor.
whoever plays Batman and Superman have they they better be bulletproof, right? Because
Can
man,
you imagine? I imagine the hate mail you get from people that just don't like you. I just don't think I could deal with that kind of stuff.
yep.
Hats off to him.
So we're gonna make this episode a short one. We're not gonna do the listener feedback. I know we kind of held off on it in the last episode, but we will catch up. But I want to be able to edit this as quickly as I can and get it out there. We recorded this last week, and then I had a lot of obligations for work and didn't have the chance to do any editing, and we didn't have time to record the beginning intro and the outro until tonight. So I want to get this out as quick as I can, and I don't want to have to do all the editing I've got to do with listener feedback. So we're gonna just jump to the Jeremy Adams interview, and then we'll come back afterwards and share our thoughts.
This is Razor, and you are listening to the blog of Oa. You need to keep listening, otherwise I will track you down with all of my skill, and you will feel my wrath.
All right, fellow Owens, welcome back to the podcast of Oa. Phil and I are joined by Green Lantern writer Jeremy Adams. Jeremy, welcome back to the podcast of Oa.
Hello. I'm glad to be back. Very glad.
We are
I can't
happy
believe
to
it's
have
been a
you.
year.
It-
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
weird.
It is when we talked last, it was right on the cusp of the first issue coming out, and we said, a year from now, we're going to get back together again, and here we are. It's about a
Yeah.
year. If you take out those 2 issues for Night Terrors, we're hitting issue 12, so that's a year,
And we're just in time for Absolute Power.
That's right. That's right. Well, that leads into the first thing I wanted to talk about, because there's been this stuff for Absolute Power. Some of the commentary, and I'm echoing, I'm not saying my own opinion, I'm echoing opinion I'm hearing from other people,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to give Lantern fans a voice. One of the things I heard was, does this derail Jeremy's plans for the book when he has to deal with, he had Night Terrors, now he's got House of Brainiac, and then you've got Absolute Power. Does that derail you, or do you see that as an opportunity to pivot your story a little bit?
I mean, yes and no, right? Like, so even Night Terrors, when we moved off, the conversation was, hey, you're either gonna not write for 2 months, or you can write the Night Terrors Green Lantern tie-in. And I was like, okay, well, as a fan, I want to write a tie-in that at least contributes to the vibe of the character that I'm writing. So like in Night Terrors, it was like, the big gimmick to me was I wanted to do the twist of, hey, I get to kind of look through Hal's past and the psychology of Hal, and then immediately turn it on its head where Hal's like, yeah, I'm not afraid of anything, and I'm going to run you down. Like, you came to the wrong person, the wrong planet. Like, that to me was worth it, because I thought, as a gimmick goes, this is great, because here's this villain that preys on fear, and I'm like, you landed next to Hal? Like, what are you, insane? You know?
You brought a knife to a power ring fight.
Yeah. So even the end, I remember people getting kind of at the end of the first Night Terrors, and they're like, ugh, parallax, whatever. And I was like, yeah, but it's not a real parallax. And also, immediately I start the second one with like, buddy, you just screwed up. And the entire issue is him just chasing him back. But that gives you kind of the way I think about Hal in a way. With this one, I was basically like, you have a choice. You either try to fight against the tide, or you try to go with it and make something really fun, or make something that can contribute. And so when I started figuring out what was happening with Absolute Power, I thought, okay, I'm going to design this piece of the story so that, you'll find out. It comes out next week. But some stuff happens with Carol. There's a momentary, you think it's like a break, and then boom, we're back. We're in Absolute Power. And I will tell you that most of like, I'm bringing a lot of characters in, and I'm pushing a lot of different things so that when the fall comes, because it'll be announced in a couple months, and I'm not going to tell you what, not that it's that big of a deal, but there's going to be a lot of moving pieces with Green Lantern that I'm excited about. But Carol, I've been leading up to the Carol thing, but the big thing about Absolute Power for me, the hook was, I was on a call with Mark Waid and Paul, and I said, hey, can Hal steal the bat plane? Like, can he steal it? And I thought, that's funny to me, So it kind of morphed to different ways. It's, I have to kind of like adhere to what is going on in the book, but I love the idea of Hal taking the bat plane and doing some stuff with it. And I was like, that's great. That'll be worth it to me,
Right.
Yeah. But
it's awful.
Yeah, and I just try to add. So when you read the Absolute Power tie-ins, it's still going to be very critical to the Green Lantern stuff. There are going to be bits that are like Absolute Power plot, but you're going to still get Theros. You're still going to get Hal. You're still going to get Carol. You're going to get some new characters. I'm doing a one-shot with the JSA. It's I forget what they call it, but like Jadestone is going to be an Amazo that I think is going to be big enough character that I want to bring him into the regular Green Lantern series, and some other stuff that I'm really just starting to throw a bunch of stuff in, like a bunch of stuff in.
I just, you have a reputation for being a real nice guy, but you just came on my show and teased me about all this great stuff, and now you expect me to sleep tonight? I mean, come on.
To be fair, the palette for the Green Lantern fans hasn't really fully reached its capacity yet, because I guarantee you it's coming. I mean, there's always the ebb and flow when it comes to books and characters and stuff like that. So one might be popular for a considerable amount of time, and then something else might come along. So Lanterns are going to get their own.
Yeah. And I think I told this to you last time. It's just taken longer. I feel like I'm trying to tie up some loose ends and set the stage for what's to come, because I really like to get into some storytelling that's a little more contained, and it's hard. I like I said, I both curse and bless Jeff Johns, because I'm like, you created this thing, this emotional spectrum thing that is so big. Yeah. It's equivalent to the Speed Force in the Flash. It's hard to extricate yourself from it.
Right.
But I want to get to a more Star Trek-y type thing eventually, but who knows? Anyways, I see things off screen. What do you got?
Well, they came out with 2 Kilowog figures recently, and
it's weird because those are alive.
Well, I joked online. It's like, where's the coffin accessory that goes with? Did you not talk to McFarlane about this? I mean, come on.
So your question is, what's the deal with Kilowog?
Well,
he's still alive.
We were early on the bandwagon of Kilowog is dead. Back
no, I never was.
Well, we were, but we weren't. There's no body yet, right? So is he dead?
Right.
He's comic book dead right now.
Right.
No one. But we were early on in that. I felt bad because we were talking about it. I'm like, man, I don't want to spoil the story for anybody if we're right, but we like to speculate.
I know. I read you guys were on it. I listened. I know. You guys were very quick to be like, I don't know if that's Kilowog. Like, I was like, oh shoot. And it's funny because I was having this debate with my editor, Paul, and he kind of wanted to be a little more explicit, and I wanted to be a little more subtle about it. But you guys caught on. A couple people caught on really quick, and I was like, oof.
Chad over at Lantern Cast was actually the first one to say something publicly. We
Yeah.
had kind of chatted about it, and then we were like, I don't want to say anything because, I don't want to ruin the story. But then I was like, Chad mentioned something on his show, and I'm like, well, screw it. We're going to mention it now
Yeah.
too.
Night terrors happen. You're like, screw them. I'll do whatever I want. No, just kidding.
But it's for us, that's part of the fun of being a fan, is speculating and looking for the hidden clues. It was one of the things that Jeff really ingrained in his run, is there were all these little mysteries, and he planted little seeds, and he started trying to figure out in between the issues. And it keeps the book alive because you're thinking about it in between issues.
Yeah.
Which sometimes writers don't do that. And,
Right.
so I really appreciate that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So no, I loved it.
I
Now,
think part of what we've tried to do with the backup issues, especially the last few, is like, I want everybody to know kind of where, as we enter the story, and where are all the lanterns, where are they, what are they doing, so that it's just not like, oh, Guy showed up. It's like, no, I want you to know the guy's hunting down Lobo and he's trapped, in a bottle. I want you to know that something's messed up with Kyle or Joe or, Jessica, so that there's a bit of an on-ramp when you see them, versus just blindly oh, they show up,
Right.
and I think that's a smart way to do the backups, because I mean,
I wish they were all 75 cents, because I'm just like,
right.
These are expensive.
Back in the day, you used to have a Tales of the Green Lantern Corps in the back of, or you had Adam Strange, or, you had different things. I wish that DC would do a Green Lantern Corps quarterly book again.
Yeah, no, my biggest Green Lantern era was John's doing Green Lantern, and then Tomasi doing Green Lantern Corps. And it was like those 1-2 punches all the time were super, super cool. Yeah. And the Tomasi one, it was really cool because I really dug Peter's Green Lantern Corps book.
Yeah.
There were so many cool, like, sci-fi and just neat, like I said, the Star Trek-y of it. It's like, oh, here's a cool adventure we're going on,
Yeah.
I think there's a real big opportunity. I'm going to ramble. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
You have to stop me, Myron. You guys have to stop. There's a real big opportunity right now to really codify and explore the DC universe. And that's something that I'm always just kind of like, hey, we're on Earth, whatever. But even after Phillips' like Warworld saga, and we don't know what's happening with the New Gods. Is there a source wall? There's all this stuff that I want to know.
Right.
And I just keep thinking about the Lantern Corps as like, what a cool way. We usually just touch on these certain characters and these certain lands, and I'm just like, there's so many other cool things that we could break into. And I hope I can stay on long enough to start exploring some of that. I still feel like I'm like tying up loose ends weirdly.
Well, to tell DC that you better stay on longer.
Wow.
Or I'm gonna I'll be out there. I'll fly to California.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when I got taken off the Flash, I was so sad about it. And then at the same time, I was like, now I can look back and go, oh man, maybe I got taken off the right time because I was so invested emotionally. But I still have stories I want to tell with Wally, but with Hal, I feel like I just started scratching the surface. So I'm lucky. I mean, I really feel lucky because most people barely get 12 issues.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, most people don't get a chance to write the Flash and then right immediately afterwards write a main title, which is Green Lantern, and all that.
I'm on the Jeff Johns track. I'm like, chick. Eventually, I'll start my own company called like the Phantom, mechanical thing.
Well, the most recent issue that we've gotten to read is issue 11, and Theros is quite the I think I've had a boss like Theros.
Bureaucracy personified.
And I appreciate the fact that you put 2/6 in. Actually, we had a listener who contacted us whose favorite Green Lantern is 2/6.
Oh, that's cool.
It was ecstatic that 2/6 got to show up. And I know that you talked about the Star Trek thing. For me, the Alien Green Lanterns are where it's at for me. I mean, Hal's obviously the center of it for me, but the aliens are such a big thing. And you had talked about on social media, what are your favorite alien lanterns?
Yeah.
So I didn't respond because I figured I was going to get a chance to talk to you. So
Mostly I did it so I could bookmark it and go back and start filling it in.
Ramey Hall,
Yeah.
Aricia, Morsalak.
See,
And
you need to write these down so that
and
I can remember, because I don't know who's alive and who's dead. That's another thing.
It doesn't matter. I mean, and Phil would like to see Sodom Yacht, I'm sure.
I'd like to see Sodom Yacht. I'd like to find out what happened to him.
Yeah, that's a big one that everybody's mentioned too. And yeah, that was one of the reasons I did it. Was obviously I've been focusing on the 2814 of it, and that ties into the plot of the Owens leaving this designated survivor lantern there, and just the idea that the reason there's so many 2814 lanterns is that I think Earth is the epicenter of so many problems, but also B, that I think they understood that humans are the cockroaches of the universe. Like they're going to survive. They're scrappy, will-powered, anti-authoritarian, kind of creatures that they're not just going to go along with everything. Whereas some people might, So right. Having it was also a way of trying to, like, in my head, because what I'm doing is I'm a fan writing, and I'm trying to figure out, well, why is there so many of these? Maybe it doesn't work perfectly, but I love the idea that, like, hey, no, we put a lantern here because we want, these guys are going to be the last best hope if something goes wrong. But that being said, the alien lanterns are such a huge part of it, and it gave me time to acclimate myself to what's going on in the Green Lantern universe, because I'd read Jeff Thorne's run and there was a lot of things spread out and I wasn't really sure where anybody was or what anybody was doing, and that's a lot of research to try to keep up. And I make my mistakes, but I'm trying to be very faithful to continuity, and what is continuity, I should say, with how. Yeah,
speaking of continuity, this is a question that has to do with, I noticed that the United Planets appears in a lot of other titles with DC, because I noticed there's a big event going on in Kneel Before Zod where they appeared, and then also House of Brainiac, obviously. So I'm imagining that at some point down the line with Absolute Power, there's something that's going to have to do with the United Planets.
Well, I mean, in my book, they explain, like, there's a quarantine. How did Brainiac get through? Stuff like that. We explain some of that stuff. I've talked with Joe Casey. I'll occasionally get questions about it because evidently I'm the one who came up with it, so now I have to back it up. And so, but then there's people like Josh. I really love Josh Williamson, and I sometimes think, I annoyed him. I think there is an annoyance. Like, what do you mean I just can't go to space? And I'm like, well, you can go to space, you just can't go past 2814. Everybody's trying to figure out how to get around it, and even with bringing in these characters called the Unseeing, it's like, okay, now what if you gave a magic user a Green Lantern ring? And part of the reason they look like that is because I was reading what Philip's doing, and his Kyle Rayner with the blindfold. I thought, oh, this is cool. There's kind of echoes of ideas and imagery, and I found that cool. There's another, you'll have to remind me, and I'm trying to remember. There's a Green Lantern. It was like, I don't know if it's an Elseworlds Green Lantern, but it was like a Green Lantern that would bring back the dead, or it was like, she had a great look about her.
Oh, it's probably the Tangent Lantern.
Well, yeah, that was that one with that had that staff with the lantern hanging from it.
Yeah. I even thought about bringing her in at one point. But my point being that, like, I love the idea that, like, because it's a multiverse, there are, like, it's almost like refractions. So you have this Kyle Rayner that looks kind of like this, and I'm like, great, let's do the Unseeing. Let's do these magic users that are blocking it magically, also like directing troops and doing some of that stuff. But all of the internal politics of what's going on, it could be its own book in itself.
Sure.
For sure. It's really good stuff.
I do appreciate that you tried to explain why there were so many Earth Lanterns, because that's been an ongoing thing for a while. And there were kind of half-baked ideas as to why, there's so much more trouble in 2814. Yeah, but we have such a big metahuman community anyway. So do we really need that many lanterns? So I do appreciate that.
It's hard though, right? Because it's the DC way, really. It's like, how many speedsters do we have? How many Bat family members do we have? At least with the Green Lantern Corps, it makes sense to me. It's like, if you have a really bad neighborhood, you have more cops, but like, so that makes sense, but it's hard. That's a DC. That is so DC to me. You know,
Yeah.
I've learned to embrace it. Like, oh, forget it. We'll just have more and we'll more. You know, the problem becomes everybody gets a favorite, and everybody
Yes.
wants the favorite.
Yeah. Everybody wants the favorite to shine. I mean, there's conversation right now talking about the Lanterns TV show,
Yeah.
and the rumor about the casting, and they want a 40 to 50-year-old Hal and a
Wow.
20 to 30 something year old John, and they're like, well, they're gonna do old Hal because then they're gonna make him turn to Parallax, and we're gonna get Kyle, and so everybody's there's like almost like a turf war going on.
Oh, I hope they don't do Parallax.
Oh, please don't. It bothered me that they did it in the last animated film.
Yeah. No, I know. It's hard. It's hard because it's like it's the same thing with Flashpoint, right? Like
Yeah.
I saw that movie and I went, oh, I've already seen this 4 times.
Right.
I've seen it in television, I've seen it in comics, so it's hard. It's both, like, even as a writer, it's really or at least the temptation is to, like, look, I'm doing this whole thing with the emotional spectrum. I'm trying to vary it, like, okay, lanterns are blowing up, the spectrum's messed up, and part of that is because I can't just drop into the same old thing, what's going on before. And that's hard. It's hard. I mean, there's no way around it. It's hard because you're like, look at this great idea, isn't it great? You should keep using the great idea. I'm like, no, I want to try to do something else.
Yeah Well, and speaking of the emotional spectrum, we're down to just the Green Lanterns in the Indigo Tribe, if I'm counting correctly.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Indigo Tribe's there. Who knows?
Maybe. Well, the last time we saw them, Lobo killed almost all of them.
Well, see, there you go.
So, there's only really one.
Indigo with the splash of blood.
And the last time before that, they betrayed the Green Lanterns. So,
right. Who cares about the Indigo Tribe? You know what? They're dead. You heard it here first. No, just kidding.
they put the ass in compassion.
Yeah, it has been a fun thing to kind of play with, all that stuff. And then obviously, I think the crux of it is Carol and Hal, in a way, and how messy that relationship is. I mean, absolutely, positively messy. But one of the things I tried to do in the last issue, was I just reading more and more, I'm like, man, there is just not that much with them as kids. And I love the idea that they've been in each other's lives forever.
That was nuance.
Yeah. Well, and the kid thing only came about later on in canon. So
yeah. Well, I mean, how old was he when his dad died?
He was a kid, but Hal and Carol weren't really.
That's Jusei.
Yeah. I would say he was around 8, maybe 8 or 8.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But there's not that much around that age.
Yeah.
There's not that much post it.
No, you're right. Right.
And so trying to make that connection a little bit more of, like, this is the reason it's so messy. Because this is real to me. This is the people that meet very early on, and a lot of them get married right out of high school or whatever. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes it's like they haven't done enough living, or they don't know, or heaven help you, you've moved on and you realize, oh, I should have stayed with that person, Right. And so I think it's really messy.
It's like the thing that Hal loves, the thing that Carol loves about Hal is the same thing that keeps them from having a great relationship.
That's right. But also, I think Carol is clinging to some strange stuff too,
Yeah.
It's like she's working for her. I mean, she's running her father's company. What is that psychologically? And by the way, when you've been in this space, how rewarding is that?
Right.
Like,
I always thought it was funny, back in the day, whenever they would get together, and then Carol would get jealous of him being a Green Lantern and having to be away from Earth.
Right.
And she couldn't handle it. And then it was like she got to be the Star Sapphire.
Right.
And then did that whole New Guardians adventure. But she never got to the moment where she's like, I realize now, I get it. There was never that moment.
Right.
So I'm hoping at some point we get to that. I loved
I do
it
too. I think Carol has to come to a realization. I mean, and what I'm trying to explore is, and it's even in the one shot, is she's with the. I'm trying to think. I don't think I'm spoiling anything. Is that, like, she's with some of these older heroes? She's with, like, the JSA. She's confronted with people that don't have their powers yet still want to be heroic. And I think the idea of being the internal mechanism of being a hero is you are really putting other people before yourself.
Right.
And now she potentially, at the end of this last issue, we don't know what's going to happen next. Haha. But like she potentially has the ability to do something more for others. And
Right.
whether she embraces that role, I personally think Star Sapphire as a super heroine could be a really cool character
Yes.
that stands on her own.
And I
Because
think
Wonder Woman, you have all these other characters.
Sure,
And I'm like,
sure.
man, I definitely like feel like somebody better than me could redesign the outfit a little bit. but you know, I still think it could be a really, really cool somebody trying to learn to be a superhero in a way.
Yeah. I think
I think she needs to be like the equivalent to like a Mera or
Right.
over an Aquaman or
Mhm.
Lois Lane and Superman. I mean, she needs to be heightened to that level.
Right. I
And
agree.
I don't think
I
she's
agree.
there yet. Yeah.
Right.
and I think that can help heal that relationship a little bit, because I think she then can finally start to see things from Hal's perspective a little bit.
Right.
And then
Right.
Hal seeing her risk her life is going to start him seeing things from her perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
I loved in this issue where they go to the Chapel of Solitude
Yeah.
and they're picking out the rings, and Nate picks out the green one. I was
I'm
like,
such a hack. I mean, it's just like it was like in my head I was like, ooh, is it a Booster Gold like chapter, you know, or is it a Superman? And I thought, oh, the Superman's would be more fun, I think, you know. And
I loved how the art team, and I don't know whether it was stuff that you gave them to do or whether they just chose to do it, but you can see throughout this story in this issue, she's not really into getting married. I think she's like, if I get married, then I'll stop feeling the way I feel, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I would write stuff in there like this. She doesn't want to do this.
Yeah.
But
Okay, good.
Germanico and Amanke are both so good. I mean, Amanke, I think the first time I worked with him was in the Flash. It was the tie-in for Dark Crisis tie-in where they go to look for Barry Allen. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's really, really good. And it matched really well with Germanico, especially on this one. And Germanico is just, at this point, I'm just like, I told you before, I'm terrified they're going to steal him from me. You know, like I'm just absolutely terrified. If I could pay him extra to just like stay on, because he's so good and he's getting so much better. There's in the issue where Hal like looks at Earth and he says goodbye, and then he jumps into warp speed, and then he gets pulled out of it, and there's all the spaceships. I remember getting that page back and I'm like, what the hell are we doing on Earth? Because I was like, he's so good. He's so good at this stuff. What have I been doing? I'm an idiot, you know? I feel like they're going to steal him and put him on a Batman book or something. And I'm like, oh, no, stay here, you know?
I think that's always the challenge, because the space stuff is so cool.
Yeah.
But then readers want to see their interactions with their friends. And I think that's often been the problem with Green Lantern is juggling that piece of it.
Yeah.
It's been a challenge.
I'm hoping. I mean, it would be solved if they did a Green Lantern core, which would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, if you did a core book that was either, there's no plans for this that I know of.
I'm going to edit this, so it's going to sound like
there are plans that. But what I was saying is, I think Green Lantern core in itself, if you wanted to try, this is very not self-serving for me, I should shut up, but if you wanted to try new writers out, this is the perfect place to do it.
We've
Here
said
you
that
go.
before.
You get 2 issues or 3 issues to do an arc, and then we go to a new team, and then we go to a new team, and then we go to a new team. And it would be so cool.
We've said that exact same thing. I mean, almost identical to that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be neat. And I'm hoping, at least right now with the power battery, you know, and I just, there is something, you know what it was when Hal was talking with Barry, when he had the interaction with Barry, I remember thinking like, gosh, I kind of miss Hal hanging out with other heroes. Like it was really immediate, and it was a really like, oh, wow, I like Hal talking with Barry. I kind of would like to see him talk with some other people, you know, but that's hard too, because everybody has their own book and they have their own thing going on, and you have to be like, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? You know, and that's hard. That's hard because you don't want to interrupt somebody else's story. You don't want to mischaracterize somebody else's way of doing, you know, like Hal showing up in Tom King's Wonder Woman would be like, what? You know,
if only he had like a team book with all of these characters together. Like
Yeah, I know it's weird. I don't know what you
Justice
call it. Yeah, something
League,
maybe like a union or a league. Yeah.
So we know that unfortunately War Journal is coming to an end with issue 12.
Yeah.
And you've kind of hinted that there are some plans and things going on. And
Don't cry for Philip Kennedy Johnson, the golden boy of all right.
I don't want to.
He's always got stuff going. He's incredible. He's still got a day job, for goodness sake.
Right.
I
don't want to put you on the spot because I respect you too much for that. But
yeah. But I'm going to put you on the spot.
Can you at least reassure us that there's some plans?
So
for things?
Philip and I had been talking for a long time, and Philip's book will end, and then I'm going to, Philip and I have done something together, and then I think we're moving a lot of pieces of that into the main book. So Philip gets to tell his story, but Philip's opened up a lot of interesting doors, I think. And we talk a lot about, different pieces of it. And I really value him because I read his stuff and I just feel very inadequate. He's incredibly good at world building. He has this really fantastic way of writing dialogue and kind of like alien speak and all this stuff. And I'm like, boom, smash, pow, spit take, with Guy Gardner or whatever. But yeah, we've been talking a lot. And so the things that are happening in John Stewart are not going to, how do I describe this? Because Theros, I believe, is Philip's creation. So even from the beginning, from the Superman series and the United, I think Bendis brought the United Planets in.
I think he did early on.
Era. Yeah. And then Philip really started kind of like playing with the insidious underbelly. And I picked up the baton there, but we've been having a lot of conversation. And if you see his book, you have Veron and different characters that I think are just going to fold into the Green Lantern universe as bad guys, continual problems, continuing interesting things. Even the United Planets, like we all know, if you're a DC fan, you know that at some point they right the ship, for the Legion stuff. But we're not there yet. So we go back and forth about a lot of things. And then we wrote something together that I think will be really, really cool. I think if people read it, every page they're gonna be like, what? No, what? No, what? And then it'll be, by the end, they'll be like, what? And their brains will explode. That's my hope.
And the only reason why I asked the question was because there's anxiety out there about, well, now they're going to shove it all in one book and we're not going to get enough content. So people, there's anxiety out there.
Look at you, Green Lantern fans. Nothing. Get two books, a TV show, and it's like, no.
Well, but we used to have 5 books. No,
I know. Yeah, right. That's when it was the cat. That's when people were buying.
Right.
They're buying comics. It's just there's so many more comics now.
Yeah. The marketplace has gotten so huge.
Which, by the way, that makes the responsibility of what I'm doing hard.
Speaking of buying comics, I do want to say banger job on Flash Gordon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Dude.
Yeah.
That was like a dream come true. I had to call my brother because we watched it all the time growing up. Because I was born in 74. So me and my brother and the family would, man, every time Flash Gordon came on, every time that Queen note hit. Yeah. We were right there watching it.
So I have a thing where I listen to movie soundtracks, movie scores when I read my comics. Yeah. So of course, I had to. It was great. And I loved a couple of little nods to the movie you threw in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because they're very careful about that, as you can imagine. But it's also weird because it's like they have a lot of rules, I should say.
Really?
And let's just, like, if you haven't read it, spoilers now. So please pause this program. Also, I think that
we just lost you.
I'm still here, right?
Yeah, you're still there.
Did I freeze? I froze. Sorry.
Yeah, you froze.
So probably Mad Cave is interrupting my. No, just kidding. There are a bunch of rules because when I was doing it, even Will, who was doing the art, there's this art that came back from Aura, and I'm from the Frank Frazetta era of girls. And, I read the John Carter Mars. I'm a big Edgar Rice Burroughs fan. So like all of the Edgar Rice Burroughs books were really big for me. But like, here's this sexy aura, and they're like, too sexy. And I'm like, too sexy? That's she's sexy, and or they were like, hey, we don't really want you to say Mongo. And I was like, what? And so I literally pivoted everything and ended that book the way it is, because I'm like, I'm not going to spend my entire run not saying this word.
Well, I mean, killing the main character in the preview book is gutsy.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Right,
But you guys know I'm not a deconstructionist. Like, he doesn't have a heroin problem. He's Flash Gordon. Like, he is this, you get it. You pick it up and you're like, oh, he's a square-jawed hero. Like, he's gonna do what he needs to do,
And that's exactly what the movie entailed. You got it right when you picked up right when you started watching the movie.
That's right. Sam Jones running, blocking, tackling. So when I found out I was doing Flash Gordon, I went to one of the conventions, and Sam, he had his whole thing set up, and if you've ever seen him at a convention, he is like the guy who sells the slap chop on TV. I mean, suddenly you're just gravitating toward him, and he's just like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I'm paying all this money to have a picture and him sign an autograph. And I'm like, oh, but I was just like, yeah, I'm writing Flash Gordon. I have to do this, but it was super, super fun. And I love that movie for what it was.
There was a documentary out on Flash Gordon. It was really, really
But wasn't
banger.
I have to see it, because one of my first jobs in Hollywood was an internship for Dina De Laurentiis.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
He was super cool. And when he made movies, it's like,
they
look like movies,
they were good movies, man.
Yeah. And
did you see the television series? There was a series on
Sci-Fi Channel series, right?
Yeah.
I think I only got through like a half of the first one. I was like,
it was terrible.
Yeah. It is weird though, but like Buck Rogers and that, you're just kind of like, why aren't they? There must be some rights things going on, because
Dick Tracy has been absent for so long, and now it's starting to be written on.
Well, you saw that like the movie rights, Warren Beatty has the movie rights, so occasionally he'll pop up and he'll be like, I'm Dick Tracy, and you're like, what is this? This is really weird. But I love all that stuff. And Mad Cave, obviously, they're doing a ton of Flash Gordon stuff, like a kid version, like comic strip version. But the reason I got the job was I was pitching a creator-owned book, and then they said, hey, would you want to do any of our licensed stuff? And they started naming off stuff, and they named off Flash Gordon. I was like, I'll do Flash Gordon. And they're like, it's yours. It was like that quick. I was like, oh, I've never gotten a job that quick. So
I wonder about Battle of the Planets. Remember that one?
Gotchaman. Yeah. And the funny thing is, as a kid, I remember seeing it like once, like there's some of those shows growing up, you're like, you see it once and you're like, I'll never find this again.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you go back to Mad Cow and tell him that you want to do a Thunderbirds one, because my son would love that. He's only 5. And the series is amazing. Even Thunderbirds or Go is pretty prime. So,
well, I wrote one of the episodes of Jim Krieg, the animated ones that Rob Hoagie ran not too long ago, that are really fun.
Really?
Yeah. It's a really fun series. It was out.
Thunderbirds are awesome.
5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know, something.
Even the movie wasn't terrible, but
Team World Police or whatever, Team America.
No, the actual Thunderbirds movie.
I'm joking.
All right, so we got off Green Lantern topic. And
sorry, everybody.
I do have to take one more tangent.
My fault.
You mentioned autographed pictures and stuff, so I got to circle back to Supernatural. The last time we talked, we told you about my wife.
Yes.
Supernatural, Kolchak for Cougars.
Yes.
Jared Padalecki is going to be in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah,
at a convention. So I made my wife go buy her tickets and her photograph pass.
Amazing.
I know I'm going to have a great weekend. That's all I got to say.
Seriously. Chuck Norris was coming to one, and I bought passes, and I was so excited to meet Chuck Norris, and then he didn't come, and I was like so sad.
Oh,
so sad. And I'm almost tempted, especially with the older stars. Not Padalecki. He'll be running that thing forever. As long as she goes, ooh, those shoulders. I told you what happened when my wife met them, Jensen and Jared. I introduced her. My wife, who's never seen the show, was like, hi, like that. And it was like the most demoralizing moment you could have, And then we get a picture, and it's like Jim and me and Spike, and it's like troll person, handsome troll person, That's funny.
I'm a big Elvira fan, and so I got to meet
Oh
her
yeah.
several years ago, and we're doing the picture, and my wife got in the picture with us, and I'm like, I kind of always crop the picture a little.
You push her away. By the way, you should talk to Tim Sheridan next time. I think he wrote some stuff for Elvira once
Oh,
upon
He
a
really?
time.
did. I think he
Yeah,
did. Yeah. I
yeah,
looked at some of that. Some of the stuff's really good too, man.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
He's gonna he's gonna come on our show. I actually
oh, good.
text him. I text him about, I think it was last week, Myron,
Yeah,
yeah.
because his series is wrapping up. So we kind of
yeah,
want to get him on and touch base with him after it.
yeah. We talk pretty much every day. I call him pretty much every day at 9, and then we moan. We came in to the industry very close to the same amount of time, and we were on Justice League Action at the same time. And when you find somebody that you can like,
Right.
moan, bitch and moan about the industry or like whatever, you want to be able to complain about your boss to somebody,
Sure.
and only people that understand. And it's all very like, I'm doing everything I wanted to do as a little kid. So how much complaining can I have? I mean, there's a lot, but it's all very well meaning.
Right. If it just paid more, right? That's the thing.
I mean, 100%, 100,000%. If it paid more, but obviously it doesn't matter. I'll keep doing anything they ask me, and I keep sending them pitches. Like, let's do this, let's do this. And it's just like, I'm sure at some point it's like Paul probably has it muted and then sees there's 300 messages and like, okay.
Here we go again.
Jeremy.
It must be the second week of the month. No.
Yeah.
So you talked about a little bit about creator-owned stuff. Did you land your story anywhere?
Oh no one likes my stories. But I think I'm gonna go it alone.
I asked, man.
I know. No, I think I'm going to go it alone. Honestly, I've got some really great. I'm really blessed to have some incredible artists that are willing to do some covers. And right now, I'm trying to figure out who's going to do the interiors. And like I said, it's a very silly idea. There's a lot of stories I want to do that would be more than one issue. This would be something that can do one issue or it could carry on, but it's kind of my proof of concept. I want to see if people will want to buy it. And
Right.
if they do, then it's like, oh, that's going to open the door to a ton of other books that I want to do. But this is a very fun kind of just bananas idea I had while I was drinking too much caffeine. And I thought, oh, this will be really, really fun. We'll see if people jump on board. But it's part of it is just to see if I can do it too,
Yeah.
just to see if I can put it from beginning to end and work, just build that up from one brick to a house. And I'm just very curious if I can do it, because I definitely get in these stages where I'm like, I can do it, oh man, I suck, I'm horrible, okay, I can do it, so it's a weird thing, and it's expensive too. It's an expensive proposition because you have to pay people, and you want to pay people, and you want to pay
Right.
them well enough that like they're not like, what a jerk.
Sure.
Well, like if you try to go the crowdsource route, there's that big gamble of, are people going to back it enough that I can bring it to market?
Right. I mean, obviously I have more of an advantage than some people because I'm writing, a big book, and I have a little bit of name recognition in the field now, but I also go to a lot of conventions with comic sketch art. And so this is the poor mindset of like, no matter what, I'm sure I could sell at least one every convention. And then after 20,000, I can make my money back,
I was jazzed when the solicitations came up for August and they dropped the names of the Shadow Lanterns being in the thing coming up. I have so many ideas in my head of what the Shadow Lanterns are. I'm jazzed to see what you do with it.
Well, I am curious too, because that might be the first time I've heard about it.
Oh, well, yeah, it's the solicitation for the August issue.
Oh, interesting. What does it say?
Hold
Let's see.
on.
Let's see how close.
Classic.
Let's see how close it gets to reality.
So let's see. There's a website called the Blog of Oa that has all that stuff in it.
Oh
Let me
yeah,
see.
I know. It has
What
everything.
it's run by a jerk, but it said
Shoddy site, by the way.
how Jordan puts down the weapons of DC's greatest villains to escape Amanda Waller's clutches and reconnect with the heroes who are set to strike back at this new absolute power. Meanwhile, Carol sets out on a mission to help others, learning what it means to be a hero along the way. Plus, witness the rise of the Shadow Lanterns in an all-new backup story by Mark Guggenheim and Derek Ross.
Oh, interesting. I know what that is now.
What is it?
I can't tell you.
I thought we were gonna go. I thought we were gonna go.
But I feel like that's like one of those legal things where it's like, well, we named it this, and then legal was like, no, and it's like Shadow Lanterns, like yes. I know exactly what that is because I just read Guggenheim's backup, and it's really good. And I'm sitting there going like, gosh, this guy's really good, you know. And Mark and I become friends, and then and you just sit there and you go, oh man, why are you doing the backup? I shouldn't say that out loud, you know. Like, I think he's done Star Trek and Star Wars. Like, I'm pretty sure he's well versed in. You can tell. Like it's like, oh, you've done a lot of sci-fi because this makes more sense than what I'm doing.
Well, he did write a Green Lantern script.
Yeah. I've heard of it. Did you know he came up with Sinestro's first name?
Really?
That was Mark Thal Sinestro. That was him. He invented it, and he was telling me that story, and I forget what. Oh, it was because Sinestro just sounds like a Silver Age, like, oh, he's sinister, like he's Sinestro, you know, whatever.
Sinister. Oh, yeah.
And it was like, oh no, let's make it like an alien name and give him like a first name or whatever. And he did it. And I was like, hey, look at that. There's some good things that came out of that movie. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds got married.
Right.
You know, Sinestro. The funny thing is, I bet if I went back and watch it, in the light of all the superhero movies, I bet I'd be like, hey, this isn't that bad.
It isn't that bad. I thought it was better. I thought it was better than the Thor movie that came out the same year.
The Thor, the
Love and Thunder.
Chris Hemsworth.
No, the very first one. Chris Hemsworth. Yeah.
Oh,
they came out the same year.
The Thor movie, I saw it at a studio. It was a preview. Like there wasn't even a finished special effects, and we're watching it, and there's a moment with him without a shirt, and every woman in that theater breathed in. They and then it was like nervous chuckles from the guys right after. It was such a funny. You're like, oh, that guy just became a movie star very quickly.
Yeah, right. I think the movie.
I just lost my wife.
Right. I know. It's like you're drooling. Are you okay? Like
the movie wasn't bad. I think the studio got too involved in it, and they tried to be a little too ambitious.
Yeah.
And that took it off the rails. If they just let DC make the movie, they started the whole DC Studios thing. If they just let them make the movie on their own, gave them a pot of money and let them go, it'd have been better. But it wasn't bad. It just knowing the potential of the franchise, it could have been so much more.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, if I was doing it, I would do it much more like Last Starfighter or like, Harry Potter-ish. It's like I'd probably get them into space by the end of the first act and go from there,
I would have done the Manhunters first.
Oh, interesting.
Because if you're doing CGI, then you only have one asset to have to do the CGI with. So you're
look at you putting on a producer hat.
Right.
About money. They burn it.
And it would have been easier for the toys,
Yeah.
But then you could have had maybe Sinestro be the one behind the Manhunters, and the Manhunters killed Abin Sur, so you could have done a little training day thing.
Look at you, that's great.
And then they reveal that Sinestro was behind it in the end credits,
right?
And that spins you into Sinestro Corps.
Why aren't you in Hollywood? What are you doing?
Because I still have a soul.
What are you doing?
I still have a soul. That's why.
Wait a second.
I just pissed off my guest. No. No, I could never. Like I've had Green Lantern fans, like I'm sure any comic book fan, I dream about writing a Green Lantern story, but I know I'm too close to it, that I probably wouldn't do a good job at it because I'm too close to it.
That's, what's so funny is that's definitely me when it comes to certain characters. Like I love Green Lantern, I love Flash, but they were never like my primary characters. So I think I have a little bit of an easier time onboarding. And I'm also very, very like, I'm a huge nerd, so I'm like very much into continuity, and I'm very much into like I want it to make sense and whatever. So the weird thing is I grow to love them. That's more of an interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. Like Wally and his family, I got like too emotionally invested, and I find that happening with Hal a little bit. But like I'm such a Ted Kord Blue Beetle fan that I'm just like I don't think I could do this. Right. There's a part of me that like doesn't want to do it because I don't want to see behind the curtain. I just want to read stories about them because
it's like
the minute I don't know. But if somebody came to me and said, "You want to do Blue Beetle?" I'd be like, "Yeah, let's do it."
It's like you can fall out of love because of the business part of it, right? And
yeah, I mean, theoretically, but I'm such a nut. I would try it anyways. I have two speeds. It's like I get scared for a moment, and then I'm like, well, let's do it anyways and see what happens. Like that's kind of how I feel.
For me, I mean, Hal, I would not be here if it wasn't for Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan literally helped save my life. And so I am so close to it on an emotional level. I know I couldn't do some of the things that you need to do as a writer. I have great ideas for scenes and things.
Yeah.
I mean, the scene that Jeff wrote where Hal's charging his ring off a Manhunter in midair. I want to see that scene in live action.
Yeah.
And I picture Hal getting into a jet at the end of the movie, having to take on the Manhunters, and Aerosmith's Back in the Saddle plays in the background, and he goes off and that scene takes place. Or he's meeting Jon Stewart in the beginning of the movie, and they're in the military, and they get into a bar fight. And so you set that dynamic up that they hate each other. And then in the second movie, you do the Sinestro Corps War, and John is picked as Hal's partner, and you get the Lethal Weapon dynamic, not the age difference,
right?
But John sees this as such a serious, noble thing.
Right.
And then he's partnered up with this guy that once he finds out who it is, he's like, oh, I hate that guy. Yeah. And then he sees this is the guy who's breaking all the rules. And here I'm this ultra serious guy. That to me is the humorous part of the relationship.
So then you do another one where the Joe Pesci character is really like Bill Burr, Guy Gardner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Bill Burr's Guy Gardner.
Right.
It's
like, look at these losers.
But I see them in a fight, and then the MPs show up, and the Authority song plays in the background.
I do that all the time, though. Like I'm writing a scene, and I'm like, oh, do I put the music cue in the book? And
I would love it.
I mean, I did it with like the Tom Petty song. There was also I couldn't put as much as I wanted to in a flash, and it was basically it was in the 1 Minute War. I had Wally, in his car listening to Springsteen, and it's like interesting what you can and can't do, like how much of it you can do and not do.
Well, limitations.
Yeah. So, can you tease us with anything that we can?
So Absolute Power is really, though it's Hal centric, we're going to get a lot of vignettes with some other characters that I think are going to be important to what happens after. And then in October, October we're going to start rolling into the finale of this story in a way. Really getting into the nuts and bolts of Theros and United Planets, and like it's really going to culminate, and it's going to get pretty bananas. So I'm excited though, because I know kind of where it's going, and that's always great as a writer. And it's hard though, because they double ship in December, so you kind of have to be ahead of the game. And what I'm really excited about, at least with Absolute Power, is Fernando Passarin, who I've worked with a lot. He was the first artist I ever worked with on a comic book, is doing the 3 issues. And he's great. He's just stinking great. And I love working with him. So those 3 Absolute Power tie-ins are going to be very additive as we march on to what happens after. And then, that'll be right when Philip's run ends, and then it's gonna get crazy. That's all I can say. It's gonna get crazy.
It's gonna get crazy. That's now the title for our episode. It's gonna get crazy.
And I'm waiting for a knockdown, drag out war between like all the lanterns in the United Planets. I just want to see like this big old S storm.
On
a big spread.
I know. With big spread, shoot, I wanted to do 22 pages of it. I don't think anybody would buy it. Like they're like, it's a 22-page action scene.
I would buy it. He froze again, didn't
he? Yeah. Froze not a good look either.
Yeah. I hiccuped again. Sorry.
That's okay. You should see the facial expression it froze with, though. It's great.
Yeah, I was like, the 22. Like, if I did a 22-page action scene, I'm like, can they pay me for that? Like, so Zermatico, page 1 through 22. Fight, like
you need to do what they did with Superman and the Death of Superman. You need to start like a 5-issue story. And the first issue is 5 panels a page, then 4 panels a page.
Oh, that's good.
All the
That's
way
good.
down to 1 panel a page, you
That's
know.
good. I like that. I like that. See, that's the type of stuff that I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. Now it's funny though, because I thought I had all the time in the world in terms of how long the books are and what I need to get done in it. And then I'm like, oh no, do I have enough pages? Like, now but I think I have enough runway that I can really put a fine point on it. So we'll see. I don't know. You guys could all be like, Balagaboa, 4 thumbs down. Salak gives them 4 rings down.
Never
First
gonna
of all, I don't
happen.
think that's going to be possible. I mean, you've already hit high marks with your run so far. I mean,
Well,
you're hitting on all the
wait till you
cylinders.
see what happens. No,
He's like, challenge accepted.
It's been a great book, and it's been fulfilling. I know Myron and I rave about it all the time. I mean, it's just
thank you guys. No,
in,
you guys
in a
are
good
very
way.
kind.
in a
You
good
guys
way.
are very kind. It's hard. It's comic book writing is weird in a social media age. It's like
Yeah.
you people that really like it, and then there'll be people that'll just be like, "Oh, he's so mid." And it's like there are some things. It's like I am not at the level of a writer that can get away with certain things. Like I can't kill certain people off because they won't let me, And then at the same time, I'm like, well, that's true. But then there's a certain amount of like sometimes in retrospect you're like, yeah, but why did I do that? Why did I want to do that? And can I find a more interesting story without that? My favorite stuff, like have you ever read Frederick Brown sci-fi books? They're like Henry books.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So good. And I'd love to get to a place where I can start writing Green Lantern episodes that are more like, issues that are kind of like old school Star Trek a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be really fun. Even though you would have an overarching.
You need to get him on some kind of a ship.
Oh, I don't know what. And they should have like a navigational system that's really
an AI.
Yeah, an AI or something. I don't know.
That'd be
AI is
awesome.
too troubling. AI.
There you go. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm an AI right now. This isn't even me here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sitting in the other room.
Honestly, I've never met you guys in real life, so you could not exist. It could just be an algorithm that really likes your Lantern.
Some people think I don't exist. I work in IT, and so we have a lot of conversation about AI. I have to do a bad dad joke.
Oh,
but
okay,
we were talking about AI, and I started saying, well, they're so concerned about AI that they've got to have an organization to oversee the AI, but the organization is going to be made of AI. So it's going to be the AIAIO.
I like it.
Bumper sticker that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can find you in Green Lantern. We can find you in Flash Gordon starting in July. Is there anything else you're working on right now that we can be looking forward to?
I'm running I'm head writer on a Lego show that I've finished season 3 and working on season 4, which is fun. It's like a kid's show that I'm enjoying. I have a DC thing that will come out that is animated that will come out sometime in a couple years probably. And then and then the creator own. I'm trying to get the creator own, and there might be another announcement or two.
I love the a thing.
I just never know if I'm so used to doing animation stuff, and the publicity guy Gary Mariano is the nicest guy in the universe, but he scared us so much with if we said the wrong thing, we were going to get a bullet in the head essentially.
He scolded me on Twitter.
Oh, I bet. I bet he did.
Because I didn't like the the Beware My Power film.
Yeah.
And it pained me because I love Ernie.
Yeah.
And I love Jim.
Yeah.
I did not like the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't pull any punches. But
right.
I mean, and I felt awful because I respect both those guys so much.
Yeah. Sometimes things just don't connect.
No. And
the funny thing is with the Tomorrowverse in particular, I think it's really hard for people to connect. But I will say this, having done a little bit in it, I had written some of JSA World War II and a little tiny bit. I did the Warlord segment in the War World.
The War World, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
that was the best part, by the way.
So thank you. So this is the thing I will say, that the Tomorrowverse was conceived as a very connected story. And I think that when it's all said and done, when Crisis 3 comes out or whatever, I think it's going to be one of those things in 10 years, people are going to watch it all and go, wait a second, this connects to this, and this connects to this, this connects to this. I think it'll age better than some people think, but I could be wrong. You know. Meanwhile, I'm still waiting for the green light to do another Soul of the Dragon or another Super Sons movie, you know.
I loved Soul of the Dragon.
That is my favorite.
My favorite of the last 5 or 6 years worth of animated films.
Thank you.
I loved it.
One of the things I love about it was the way we ended it was such an intentional 70s way of ending it. Like, I'm such a John Carpenter fan, and that kind of like, oh my gosh, they're in hell. And an entire generation of people mad at me because they're like, this isn't an ending. And I'm like, well, if you've ever seen any 70s movies, this is a whole point. This thing is absolutely 70s. Yeah. And I remember the moment I said to Bruce, like, what if he ends in hell? And they were like, no, wait a second. Like, it was just kind of this funny, hilarious. But I love that one, and Super Sons and the Johnny Cage one are some of my favorites I've ever done. And sometimes you write something and you get involved in something, you're like, I don't care if everybody hates it. Like, I'm immune now because I had so much fun doing it.
That whole 70s vibe and stuff. After I watched that movie, I ended up going out and buying the Criterion Collection Bruce Lee collection.
Yes.
Because I didn't have it, and I was on the fence about buying it. And after I watched the movie, I was like, I gotta buy it now. Because
that soundtrack is so good in Soul of the Dragon. There was a moment though, I had this scene. It's the first scene where Bruce puts on his mask and his costume and just kicks everybody's butt. And I had it originally, he's fighting the Axe Gang, and I originally had it at a discotheque, like a disco area, and he beats them all up, and he's like, disco's dead anyways. That was like the line.
Oh, yeah.
And Bruce was like, this is 74. Disco did not show up until 70, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was so specific about the line of demarcation. I was like, oh, I don't know, you know.
Continuity cop.
Yeah. It's great, because if you can get Bruce to laugh, it's great. I still have I think first draft notes from Bruce, and the same thing with Butch, and they would draw their scathing critique sometimes, where it would be like, they would literally draw a face like, oh, like disgusted with a line of dialogue or something, and you're like, that's pretty rad. You know, I'll keep this Bruce original hating my line. You know?
That'll be worth something on eBay eventually.
Yeah,
you watch
someday when my kids want to go to college.
Right.
Hates my script. Want it? Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. We appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. Gratefully.
An hour of rambling. We'll have to do it again.
It's good stuff, Jeremy. It's good stuff.
Well, thank you. Well, let's think about post December, when things really come out. Let's think about another one.
Okay, that works for me.
Absolutely. That way I can get the like post game interview to see.
There you go.
No,
I'm down.
We can just send you a hate email if you want instead.
That's fine. It's not unusual. It's not unusual.
I've never done hate email.
I get hate stuff on like bizarro things, like if I mention ships, it's like, oh boy, here we go. And half the time I do it by accident, but then like, the other day it was like somebody just I said something, I don't know, whatever. It was something silly, and then everybody just came out. And then I felt bullied. And then I was like, now I'm going to be mean. Now I'm going to dive into this, and like, like, I don't believe any of it. And I'm like, I don't care,
Cool.
All right. Well, listen, have a great night. I
absolutely keep those unboxing videos coming, by the way.
Oh yeah. My oldest is kind of like, my youngest is like, yeah, let's do it. So
cool.
Great. All right. Do you have to push stop?
No.
Okay.
I will eventually.
Out and like destroy everything.
No, it'll be fine.
All right. You said it, not me.
You're good.
Adios, muchachos.
Have a good one.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
In brightest day or blackest night, there's only one place to listen to the best in Green Lantern. That's the podcast of Oa.
All right, man. Fun times. Jeremy Adams, man, what a great guy, great character, good talks. This is like a coffee table kind of conversation, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like hanging out in a comic shop, and we're nerding out over all kinds of things. And what I like about Jeremy is he's such a relatable guy and such an approachable person. He's one of us, you know what I mean? He's one of us who's made it in the business and is now getting to do things which I'm sure as a kid he must have fantasized about, you know. So I enjoy talking to him, and we'll definitely be having him on again. We're gonna see if we can have him beat the Robert Venditti record. Robert Venditti was on this show 5 times. Well, so we'll have to see if Jeremy will beat that record.
Hey, we ought to get them both on at the same time and just have them talk about what it was like for each writing Green Lantern during their own respective eras.
That could be interesting. I wouldn't mind having Venditti back on again too, just to look back at it reflectively, to see if there's things he wants to talk about now that he's not doing the book. I mean, he's still writing DC Comics and stuff like. He's too nice of a guy to be trash talking anybody. If he has any complaints, he might say something to me off mic, but he's not going to say anything on mic, and I wouldn't want him to.
Right.
But
he was just here in St. Louis,
was he?
A few months back. Yeah, went up there to see him at Apotheosis. So
Adams,
he's a good guy. No, Venditti.
Oh, Venditti, yeah. And Adams was just on Mark Millar's show. He was on a roundtable. And I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it looks like it's pretty cool. Talking about the industry as a whole and stuff. And for those that are going to be in the Boston area on the 15th and 16th, he and Tim Sheridan are going to be at the Boston Comic-Con.
That'd be cool.
I would love to go if I could, but it's an 8-hour drive for me, and that's just too far. But I lament.
It is.
So we'll be back very soon. We're going to be covering in the next episode Green Lantern 12 and then Green Lantern War Journal 8 and 9 to get caught up with both books. And maybe by the time we record, it might be 8, 9, and 10. But
let's hope they don't get into that kind of and fall too far behind.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we talked about War Journal, I think we ended up doing 3 issues at once because we were so far behind. So we'll have to try to catch up. Maybe we'll record sometime early next week before War Journal comes out.
Yeah, we probably need to.
All right, friends. Well, as always, thanks for joining us, and thank you for making us a part of your Green Lantern fan experience. We appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of it. And until next time, treat each other well, keep that power ring charged, and make every day your brightest day. Thanks so much for watching this Green Lantern video from the blog of Oa. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find even more great Green Lantern videos, reviews, podcasts, and more at our main website, www.blogofoa.com. So until next time, keep your power ring charged and make every day your brightest day.